Right now, your ears might be listening intently to the absolute silence of your room. Your eyes may be closed, but your mind is still actively patrolling the dark perimeters of your life. There is a very specific, aching tightness hidden deep in the hinge of your jaw. There is a restless, warm pulse lingering behind your closed eyelids, a sensation of constant readiness that refuses to dissolve. You are waiting. You are waiting for a sudden shift, an unexpected change in the atmosphere, or a sign that the ground beneath you is about to give way once more. Your breathing might be shallow, trapped high up in your chest, acting as a quiet alarm system that never shuts down. Maybe you have felt this too. This is the heavy, exhausting weariness of a heart that was once completely blindsided by someone it trusted deeply. When a person you leaned on turns away, or breaks a sacred promise without warning, your entire nervous system registers a profound structural shock. The mind then makes a silent, fierce vow to itself in the dark. It promises never to be caught off guard again. It decides that surprise is the ultimate danger to your survival, and that safety can only be bought through constant suspicion. So, you stay awake. You scan the silence of the night for threats that have already passed. You analyze the hidden spaces between words in old conversations, looking for the exact moment the truth changed. You treat the quietest, most peaceful moments of your life as a hidden trap waiting to spring. Let us acknowledge the physical reality of the space around you right now, deliberately steering away from the noise inside your head. The cool night air enters through a small, narrow opening in the wooden window frame. It carries the faint, clean scent of dry cedar wood and distant autumn earth, cooling the room by small degrees. Your cheek rests gently against the cool, crisp texture of the woven linen casing of your pillow. The room itself is completely still. The dark shadows on the far wall remain entirely motionless, cast by the soft, amber glow of a single street lamp standing outside in the quiet lane. There are no sudden movements in this room. There are no sudden crises unfolding in the corners of this physical space. The environment surrounding your body is perfectly secure, peaceful, and unmoving. Even if the world inside your thoughts is still rushing to prepare for a future battle, this physical room is entirely at peace. You are allowed to notice this stillness. You are allowed to let the mattress take the full, heavy weight of your spine, letting the floor beneath the bed carry the burden you have been holding. You are not failing because you cannot fall asleep tonight. Your inability to rest is not a sign that you are broken or that you are lacking in spiritual strength. This hypervigilance is simply an inner protector that does not yet know how to retire from its post. It is the ghost of your past defense mechanisms, still standing duty long after the original storm has left the horizon. It is an act of love from your mind, trying desperately to keep you from being hurt a second time. Tonight, we are not going to force your mind to drop its heavy shield. We will not demand that you immediately open your heart or force yourself to trust the world again before you are ready. We are simply going to sit together in this gentle, unhurried quiet. We will acknowledge how incredibly tired you have become from guarding an empty doorway. You do not have to settle your past or fix your future in this moment. Here is a profound insight from the ancient path of the Buddha. The mind honestly believes that by staying permanently alert, it can prevent future pain. We tell ourselves that if we analyze every single detail, we will never be blindsided again. But this constant alertness is the very thing that prevents your true healing. We think that by stretching our awareness tight like a bowstring, we can deflect the next betrayal. In truth, we are only wearing out the delicate fabric of our own spirit. The ancient teachings speak of the two arrows of human suffering. The original hurt was the first arrow thrown by another person. That arrow landed, it pierced the skin, and it caused a real deep wound that required time to close. But the endless monitoring, the constant scanning, and the midnight rehearsals are the second arrow. This second arrow is the one we strike into our own chest over and over again with our own thoughts. The first arrow belonged to the past, and it cannot be undone by your worry. The second arrow belongs to our present fear, and it is born from the illusion that anxiety can keep us safe. The fortress we build to keep out untrustworthy people ends up locking us in a prison of our own exhaustion. Tonight, we can begin the gentle process of laying the second arrow down. In a short while, our journey will lead us to a quiet mountain valley. We will meet an old carpenter who understands the deep language of wood, wind, and weary hearts. His simple wisdom will show us how a trembling mind can finally find its true rest. But the deeper lesson has not yet revealed itself, and we must first understand the nature of the tension we carry. Let us look closely at what is happening inside the space of your chest right now. Think of your mind like a tightly stretched paper screen in a long, drafty mountain corridor. When the paper is pulled too tight by the builder, it cannot handle the natural movements of the air. Every tiny gust of midnight breeze makes the entire screen shake and rattle violently against its wooden tracks. It mistakes a gentle, passing draft for a violent assault on the foundation of the house. The paper screams at the wind, not because the wind is inherently destructive, but because the screen itself is stretched to its absolute limit. You have been living with your inner screen pulled tight for a very long time. Every text message left unanswered, every slight shift in a companion's tone, and every moment of unexpected silence makes your spirit vibrate with panic. You are treating every current draft as an ancient danger. But you do not have to fix your whole life in this hour. We are only going to gently loosen the small wooden pegs that hold the frame. We are going to let the paper go soft and slack. We will let the drafts of your thoughts pass right through the fiber without making you tremble. You can let the perimeter guard rest because the room you are guarding is already completely safe. Let your awareness drift backward in time, away from the immediate weight of your evening, to a remote valley where the mist settles early among the black pines. In this quiet landscape many years ago, lived a cloth merchant named Ren. Before he climbed into the silence of the high hills, Ren had been a man of great energy in a bustling river city. He had spent decades building a trade in fine silks and dyed cottons, sharing his success with a companion he considered closer than a brother. This companion held the keys to his ledger, knew the secret markings on his gold, and sat at his family table every evening. One autumn night, when the river was high and the city was dark, this trusted companion vanished completely. He took with him the entire fortune of the trade house, leaving behind only an empty vault, a coal hearth, and a mountain of unexpected debt. The financial ruin was severe, but the true damage occurred deep within Ren's spirit. The shock of the betrayal was a physical weight that settled into his chest, altering the way he perceived reality. He found that he could no longer look at a warm smile without searching for a hidden malice behind it. A casual laugh from a neighbor felt like a conspiracy, and a quiet pause in a conversation felt like a trap being set. His mind became an unceasing wheel of interrogation, replaying old memories to find the hidden clues he must have missed. Seeking an escape from this exhausting torment, Ren sold his remaining personal belongings and walked away from the city forever. He climbed high into the northern ridges, where the air was thin and clean. He built a small, beautiful home on a steep cliff, facing a narrow mountain gap where the north wind blew continuously. He believed that isolation would finally grant him the sanctuary his heart required. Along the western side of his new home ran a long, polished wooden corridor that looked out over the deep ravine. To protect the interior from the bitter mountain drafts, Ren had commissioned beautifully crafted sliding screens made of white paper stretched over cedar lattices. The house was structurally sound, yet Ren found that he could not sleep. Every single night, as the darkness deepened and the cold air rushed through the mountain gap, one specific paper screen would begin to vibrate. It did not merely hum with the wind. It produced a sharp, dry, aggressive scraping sound that echoed loudly down the empty wooden hallway. To Ren's hypervigilant ears, the sound was indistinguishable from a stealthy hand trying to force the sliding door open from the outside. Every time the scraping began, Ren would leap from his sleeping mat. His heart would hammer violently against his ribs, his jaw locking instantly as he held his breath to listen. He would seize a heavy brass lantern, slide the door open with a crash, and shine the light into the darkness every time. He found nothing but the empty stone walkway and the swirling gray mountain mist. He would return to his mat, only for the dry scraping to begin again 20 minutes later. This exhausting ritual repeated itself 3 or 4 times every night. Ren was growing increasingly desperate, his body trembling from sleep deprivation, his mind spinning chaotic loops of old city betrayals mixed with imaginary mountain terrors. but the deeper root of his midnight wakefulness had not yet been laid bare. Unable to endure the exhaustion any longer, Ren sent a message down to the lower valley, requesting the assistance of Master Soren. Soren was an elderly carpenter who lived alone in the woods, a man renowned for his absolute silence and his profound understanding of how wood behaves under tension. Master Soren arrived at the mountain house on a damp afternoon, carrying only a small canvas wrap containing a few steel chisels and a single wooden hand plane. He did not speak a word of greeting. He simply sat on the edge of the wooden walkway, smelling the crisp autumn air and watching the dry pine needles drift across the stone steps. Ren walked up and down the corridor, his voice tight and frantic as he explained his torment. He complained bitterly that the mountain wind was far too violent for this ridge. He insisted that the paper used in the screen was flawed, or that the cedar frame had been carved by an amateur who did not know how to balance wood. Ren pleaded with the old carpenter to build a massive iron shutter, something thick, heavy, and completely solid that would block out the wind entirely. He believed that only a total barrier could give him the safety he needed to rest. Master Soren listened to the merchant's frantic demands without nodding or speaking. He stood up slowly, his joints popping quietly in the autumn chill, and walked down the length of the dim corridor. He did not touch the wood at first. Instead, he knelt directly in front of the problematic paper screen. Placing his large, calloused palm flat against the white surface, he closed his eyes, using his hand to feel the precise frequency of the vibration. As a light afternoon draft passed through the lattice, after a long moment of silent diagnostic observation, the carpenter opened his eyes and pointed a blunt finger at the very bottom corner of the frame. Trapped deeply between the crisp white paper and the rigid cedar wood lattice was a single, brittle, dry willow leaf. It had evidently fallen into the frame during the dry autumn assembly, pressed so tightly into the seam that it had become completely flattened and hidden from plain view. Because the screen had been stretched with immense tension to keep it perfectly rigid, the leaf acted as a small, stiff wedge. Every time the mountain wind blew against the paper, the excessive tightness forced the brittle leaf to scrape aggressively against the cedar track, amplifying the small vibration into a terrifying metallic rattle. Ren watched closely, expecting the carpenter to draw a knife and cut the leaf out. Instead, Master Soren reached for his canvas wrap and pulled out a small wooden mallet. He tapped gently against the small wooden pegs that held the corner joints of the frame together, loosening them by just a fraction of an inch. He did not dismantle the door, nor did he add any heavy iron brackets to fortify it against the wind. He simply allowed the excessive artificial tension within the frame to relax. The paper screen immediately went slightly soft, settling comfortably into its wooden tracks with a natural, subtle slackness. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the mountain gap, striking the corridor with considerable force. Ren braced his shoulders, preparing for the familiar, piercing rattle that had ruined his nights for months. But the noise did not come. The loosened paper screen merely yielded to the pressure of the wind, bowing slightly inward and letting out a soft, low sigh that sounded like a breath being released. The sharp, terrifying scrape had vanished completely. Even though the dry willow leaf remained trapped inside the wood, the wind was exactly the same as it had been the night before, and the leaf was still present, yet the house was completely silent. Master Soren stood up, wiping a small shaving of cedar from his sleeve, and looked directly into the merchant's tired eyes. He spoke his very first words of the day, his voice low and steady like the hum of the earth. He told Ren that the screen was not screaming because the wind was evil, nor was it screaming because the leaf was a threat. The screen was screaming because it had been pulled too tight in an attempt to defy the natural movement of the air. The old carpenter gathered his tools, tied his canvas wrap, and walked back down the mountain path, leaving the merchant standing alone in the silent hallway. Ren remained motionless on the polished floorboards for a long time, watching the soft gray light of evening filter through the relaxed paper. For the first time in many months, a sudden wave of clarity washed over his tired mind. He realized that he had spent the last year of his life trying to build an absolute fortress, stretching his own mind so tight that the slightest movement of reality caused him to vibrate with panic. The memory of the betrayal was like that hidden, dry leaf pressed tightly into the framework of his thoughts. He had believed that his hypervigilance was a shield protecting his life, but he saw now that the tension itself was the source of his suffering. That night, as the mountain darkness enveloped the ridge, Ren lay down on his mat, listening to the soft, gentle sigh of the relaxed wood as the wind passed harmlessly by. Let us sit quietly with the image of that mountain hallway after the old carpenter walked away. The dry willow leaf was still wedged deep inside the wood, yet the terrifying noise had ceased completely. This realization contains the entire secret of your emotional healing. The merchant believed his peace could only return if he built a massive iron barrier to keep out the mountain wind. Have you ever felt this exact impulse in your own life? When someone shatters your trust, your immediate instinct is to pull the emotional threads of your life completely rigid. You tighten the perimeters of your awareness. You look at every new relationship with a cold, investigative eye. You scan every conversation for the hidden leaves of deceit. This is the natural response of a heart that has been deeply shocked by an unexpected blow. But this is exactly where the ancient wisdom of the Buddha offers a profound shift in perspective. The teachings do not ask you to become an unfeeling stone. They do not demand that you pretend your past wounds do not exist, or that the betrayal was unimportant. A heart that forces itself to feel nothing is not a healed heart. It is simply a frozen fortress, locked in a state of permanent winter. The true path to inner peace points toward a completely different kind of strength. It shows us that our ongoing exhaustion does not come from the painful events themselves. It comes from the desperate, rigid way our mind holds on to those events afterward. In the language of this ancient path, what we often call attachment is not a beautiful form of love. It is the tight, painful insistence that reality must conform to our personal demands. It is the silent scream inside your chest that says people must never change, promises must never break, and the past must be rewritten to suit our needs. When we hold this demand too tightly, we become exactly like the merchant's paper screen before it was adjusted. We stretch our spirits to the absolute limit. Every small draft of daily life makes us shake with fear. We treat a delayed response from a friend as a structural threat to our survival. We treat a quiet evening as an impending crisis. But the deeper lesson had not yet revealed itself to the merchant, and it has not yet fully revealed itself to you. Let us examine the true nature of this constant alertness. Your mind stays awake at night because it is searching for an absolute guarantee of safety. You want to know with total certainty that you will never be blindsided again. This craving for certainty is completely human, yet it is a burden that will eventually break your spirit. The world around us is inherently fluid, constantly shifting like the weather over the mountains. Nothing in this life remains permanently fixed in place. When we demand that a changing world become solid, we end up over-tightening our own internal frame. We drive the wooden pegs of our defense mechanisms deeper into our chest, believing we are making ourselves safe. In truth, we are only making ourselves more fragile. We become so brittle that the slightest movement of life causes us to scrape and rattle against our own tracks. Consider the profound teaching of the two arrows, translated into the language of your modern heart. The first arrow was the original betrayal you experienced. It was the moment the trust was broken, the promise was forgotten, or the person walked away. That arrow caused a real deep wound that required time to close. It was an event that belonged to the past, and no amount of thinking can undo it. But the second arrow is the endless mental rehearsal you perform every night. The second arrow is the constant scanning of your environment, the parsing of old words, and the anticipation of future pain. This second arrow is the one we strike into our own chest over and over again with our own thoughts. The first arrow was thrown by someone else, but the second arrow is forged by our own fear. The Buddha showed us that while we cannot always avoid the first arrow, we can absolutely choose to stop throwing the second one at ourselves. Tonight, you can begin the gentle process of recognizing this pattern. What we call mindfulness is simply the ability to see the vibration of the mind without becoming the vibration. It is the quiet capacity to notice a fearful thought and to recognize that it is just a passing draft of air. You do not have to fight the anxious thoughts that are keeping you awake. You do not have to conquer your feelings of mistrust or force yourself to feel safe. Fighting your anxiety only pulls the frame tighter, making you more sensitive to the noise. Instead, you can choose to let the space within your chest go slightly soft. You can allow the thoughts to pass right through your awareness, just as the cool night air passes through the relaxed fibers of the screen. The thought is an event in your mind, but it is not who you are. You are the vast, enduring space that contains the thought. Let us also bring the quality of true compassion into this quiet hour. Compassion is the profound willingness to meet your own pain without turning it into a weapon of self-judgment. You have likely spent a great deal of energy feeling frustrated with yourself. You wonder why you cannot just let go, or why you still feel so defensive after so much time has passed. But your hypervigilance is not a structural failure. It is simply a deeply wounded protector that has been working without rest to keep you safe from another surprise. You can look at this tired protector with absolute gentleness. You can acknowledge its loyalty and then softly tell it that the war is over. The room you are standing guard over is already empty. The person who hurt you is no longer in this room. The crisis you are preparing for is not happening in this physical space. You are allowed to relax the frame. When we understand the nature of change, we begin to look at our wounds differently. Impermanence means that the painful season you went through is no longer happening. The betrayal was a storm that passed through your life, but it is not the climate of your entire existence. The mind tries to turn a single painful event into a permanent law of reality. It tells you that because one person was untrustworthy, the universe itself is fundamentally unsafe. But this is an error of perspective. The world contains both wind and stillness, both broken promises and deep fidelity. By keeping your heart permanently guarded, you are not protecting yourself from change. You are only blocking out the beautiful, unexpected moments of warmth that want to enter your life. You are keeping out the sunlight along with the cold air. Slowly, the teaching becomes personal as you lie here in the dark. You can feel the physical places where you have been holding the frame too tight. Notice the tension in your forehead, the tightness in your temples, and the way your teeth are pressed together. These are the physical manifestations of your hypervigilance. They are the wooden pegs driven deep into your bone. You do not need to yank them out with force. You only need to notice them with kindness. Let your breath become a gentle carpenter, tapping softly against the corners of your resistance. With each slow exhalation, allow the tightness to ease by a millimeter. Allow your heart to recognize that it does not need to resolve every mystery of the past before it is allowed to rest. In a moment, this journey will take us deeper into the mountain ridges. We will discover that loosening the frame is only the beginning of true emotional freedom. There is a place where the walls themselves dissolve entirely, leaving a peace that cannot be shaken by any wind. But as we prepare to move forward, let your body absorb this immediate truth. You do not need to fix your capacity to trust tonight. You only need to allow your nervous system to go a little bit slack. Let the night air move through you without resistance. Let the weight of your body sink deeper into the quiet earth beneath you. Let the heavy weight of this day begin to drop away from your consciousness. You are simply lying here in the quiet space of your room, completely removed from the demands of the waking world. There is absolutely nothing you need to accomplish in this moment. You do not need to change the history of your relationships. You do not need to guarantee your safety for tomorrow. If it feels right, bring your gentle awareness to the natural movement of your breath. Do not try to force a deep inhalation. Do not try to regulate the pace of your lungs. Simply observe how your chest naturally rises and falls in the dark. Perhaps you notice that your breathing is slightly fast. Maybe it feels small and restricted, trapped high up in your chest. Even noticing this rhythm is enough. You are simply observing the weather of your inner world without trying to control it. Let us bring a gentle, unhurried attention to the physical sensations of the body. You might notice the specific areas where your inner protector is still standing guard against the world. Pay close attention to the small muscles around your eyes. Notice if your eyelids are pressed tightly together in anticipation of a problem. You might allow the tiny muscles around your brow to widen. Let the space between your eyebrows become spacious, smooth, and open. Now look toward your jaw. Many of us carry our old betrayals in the constant clenching of our teeth. We lock our mouths as if we are holding back a scream or bracing for an impact. If it feels right, let your lower jaw drop slightly away from the upper teeth. Let the root of your tongue become heavy and soft against the floor of your mouth. Feel the weight of your shoulders sinking down. The mattress beneath you is waiting to receive your tiredness. It does not ask you to hold yourself up. It does not require you to balance your posture. You can let your shoulder blades widen, melting into the soft fabric. Feel the gentle warmth radiating beneath your skin. Notice the faint rhythm of your pulse in your fingertips. This pulse is a quiet sign that you are alive, here and safe. There is no battle to fight in this room. The walls are solid, and the door is locked against the outer world. You can allow your core to relax, letting the belly rise naturally with each breath. There is no need to hold your physical form tightly anymore. The bed beneath you is completely solid. It is fully capable of supporting your weight without any assistance from your muscles. Now, let us quietly look at the landscape of the mind itself. Notice one specific thought that has been circling your awareness tonight. Perhaps it is a bitter memory of an old conversation that ended in pain. Maybe it is a sharp, anxious question about someone's current intentions toward you. Do not try to push this thought away from your sight. Do not judge yourself for carrying this suspicion. When we fight our thoughts, we only increase the friction inside our own spirits. Instead, try to name the emotional pattern very softly to yourself. You might say to your own heart, "This is my mind trying to pull the screen tight. This is my inner protector trying to guard me from an unexpected blow." By naming the pattern, you create a tiny pocket of space between yourself and the fear. You are no longer trapped inside the panic. You are the quiet witness observing the panic. Imagine your internal awareness as that long, quiet mountain corridor we visited in the story. Inside this dim corridor stands the beautiful paper screen of your mind. Look closely at the white paper stretched across the cedar wood lattice. Notice how tightly the fibers have been pulled by your past fears. The surface is as rigid and tense as a drumhead. Because it is pulled so tight, every passing whisper of memory makes the whole structure vibrate. You can see the small, brittle willow leaf trapped deep inside the lower corner seam. That leaf represents the shock you experienced when your trust was broken by someone you loved. It is a real memory, and it is firmly embedded in the woodwork of your life. You cannot simply wish the leaf away, and you do not need to tear the paper to remove it. And this is where the mind begins to soften. You do not need to yank the leaf out of the frame to find your peace. You do not need to erase the memory of what happened to you in the past. Instead, imagine that you hold a small, soft wooden mallet in your open hand. You walk slowly down the polished floorboards toward the corner joints of this paper screen. You see the tiny wooden pegs that hold the cedar frame together. You tap the first peg with your mallet. You do not hit it with force or anger. You simply nudge it back by a fraction of an inch. You move down to the next corner, and you gently tap the second peg. You feel the structural tension within the frame begin to shift and ease. As the wooden pegs loosen, notice what happens to the white paper surface. The excessive, painful tightness begins to dissolve from the fibers. The paper goes slightly soft and yielding. The surface becomes beautifully slack, relaxed, and calm. The screen is still there to protect the interior of the house, but it is no longer rigid. Now imagine a cold draft of wind blowing down the mountain corridor from the dark ravine. It carries the chaotic thoughts of your past and the heavy worries of your future. Watch what happens as this cold air hits the relaxed paper screen. The screen does not shake violently anymore. It does not produce that terrifying, dry scraping sound against the track. Because the paper is loose, it simply yields to the air. It bows slightly inward with a low, peaceful sigh. The wind passes harmlessly across the wood, leaving the hallway completely silent. You might practice this same intentional softening within your own chest right now. Every time an anxious thought appears in your mind, you can choose to loosen the pegs. Perhaps a memory arises that tells you someone is going to abandon you. Instead of hardening your muscles to fight it, you might say to yourself, "I can let this thought pass through me." You can imagine the thought, as a current of cool mountain air moving through a soft paper screen. The thought can enter your awareness, and it can exit your awareness just as easily. It does not need to cause a physical crisis in your body. You do not have to obey the thought, and you do not have to defeat it. You can simply let it drift through the slack fibers of your relaxed mind. There is no need to force this inner practice to be perfect tonight. If your mind tightens up again in a few moments, that is completely normal. Your inner protector has been practicing hypervigilance for a very long time. It will take time for it to learn that the room is truly safe from harm. Every time you notice the tightness returning, look at it with deep, unhurried kindness. Do not treat the anxiety as a personal failure or a spiritual lack. Treat it as a tired friend who is still trying to look out for your survival. You can return to the image of the loosened pegs whenever you are ready. Even a single moment of internal softness is a beautiful step toward your true freedom. Let your awareness drift back into the immediate reality of your bed. Feel the cool night air moving gently against your bare skin. Listen to the absolute stillness that fills the far corners of your room. The past cannot reach you in this physical space. The person who broke your trust is not standing in this darkness. The future has not yet arrived to challenge your strength. You are allowed to be completely unfinished tonight. You do not need to solve the mysteries of your relationships before you close your eyes. You do not need to decide who is trustworthy and who is dangerous while you are lying here. All of those heavy questions can wait on the floor beside your bed. For the next few hours, your only true purpose is to let the frame go slack. You can rest your weary spirit in the vast, unmoving safety of the present moment. Although the merchant wren found a temporary rest that night, the deep roots of his hypervigilance were not so easily pulled from the earth. The habit of scanning the world for threat had become a part of his very movement. When he walked down the mountain paths to trade, his eyes still watched the hands of strangers. He still checked the locks on his doors 3 times before the sun went down. The adjusted paper screen had given him silence, but his mind still craved an absolute guarantee of safety. He wanted a place where no betrayal could ever reach him. He wanted a sanctuary so perfectly fortified that his inner protector could finally sleep forever. He had heard stories of an ancient monastery located on the highest, most rugged peak of the northern ridge. The travelers called it the sanctuary of the open sky. They whispered that the sages who lived there had discovered a peace that no human action could ever disrupt. Eager to find this final shelter, Ren packed a small bag of rice and began his ascent. The path was steep and treacherous, winding through narrow ledges of gray slate. The damp scent of midnight mountain mist is hung heavily in the freezing air. The pine trees grew sparse, replaced by jagged rock formations that looked like frozen sentinels against the sky. After 2 days of difficult climbing, Ren finally reached the high summit. He expected to find a massive stone fortress with towering walls and heavy oak gates. He imagined a place completely sealed off from the dangers of the lower world. Instead, he stepped into a vast, silent clearing filled with ancient ruins. The great stone walls that had once protected the monastery had long since crumbled into dust. Giant blocks of moss-covered granite lay scattered across the open meadow. Wild mountain grasses grew through the cracks of the old stone floors. There were no perimeters left. There were no barriers to separate the sacred grounds from the wild mountain slopes. The entire space was completely exposed to the wind and the fog. Ren felt a sudden surge of disappointment and anxiety. How could a place without walls offer any true protection? As he walked through the misty clearing, he noticed a faint, flickering light near the center of the ruins. He walked quietly toward the glow, his boots crunching softly on the wet gravel. Through the swirling gray dampness, he saw an elderly nun. Her face was deeply lined with age, and her eyes were clouded over with the soft white film of complete blindness. She carried a small clay oil lamp in her left hand, its tiny golden flame dancing in the mountain breeze. What happened next changed the way he understood suffering. Ren stood in the shadow of a broken archway and watched the old nun move. She walked with an absolute, unhurried certainty that seemed to defy her lack of sight. She approached a large, solitary stone pillar that stood completely alone in the center of the meadow. This pillar was the only part of the ancient main gate that had survived the passage of centuries. The walls that had once connected to it were completely gone, leaving only wide open space on either side. Attached to the side of this lone stone pillar was a heavy, rusted iron latch. It was a massive piece of ancient metalwork, pitted by centuries of rain and mountain frost. Sister Jae-jin paused directly in front of the stone pillar. She set her small clay lamp down on a flat rock. She reached out her thin, weathered hand, her fingers tracing the rough surface of the granite until she found the iron latch. With great care, she lifted the heavy metal bar. The rusted iron let out a loud metallic clink that echoed sharply across the empty ruins. She dropped the latch back into its iron catch, checking its weight and security. She shook the metal bar to ensure it was firmly locked in place. She performed this inspection with total seriousness, as if she were securing the main gate of a wealthy city against an invading army. Ren watched this repetitive action with growing confusion. He could contain his questions no longer. He stepped out from the shadows of the archway, his voice echoing in the quiet air. He asked the nun why she was so carefully checking the lock on that gate. He pointed out that the walls had fallen down centuries ago. He told her that anyone or anything could walk right past the pillar into the monastery without using the gate at all. He told her that her efforts were completely meaningless because the boundary she was guarding did not exist. Sister Jae-jin did not startle at the sound of his voice. She slowly turned her blind eyes toward the sound of his footsteps, her wrinkled face remaining perfectly calm. She kept her thin hand resting gently on top of the heavy, cold iron latch. She asked the merchant if he believed the lock was meant to keep the mountain wolves out of the ruins. She smiled softly, a gentle expression that carried no judgment or mockery. She told him that the wolves had walked through these meadows unhindered for hundreds of years. She explained that she did not check the latch to protect the monastery from external dangers. She checked the latch because her hand had been trained to check it for 50 years. It was a deep, mechanical habit of her body, born from a time when the walls were still standing and the gates were heavy. She told Ren that the mind is exactly like an old gatekeeper in a ruined city. Long after the walls have crumbled into dust, the inner protector still walks the perimeter line. It still checks the locks on doorways that have no frames left to hold them. It still strains its ears to listen for an enemy that has no wall to climb. Sister Jae-jin lifted her hand away from the heavy iron latch, letting it rest softly by her side. She told the merchant that true safety does not come from building a wall that can never be breached. True safety comes from realizing that the vast, open meadow cannot be stolen by anyone. When you have no walls left to defend, you can never be blindsided by an intruder. The enemy can walk right through the space without breaking anything because there is nothing left to break. A profound, heavy silence settled over the high summit as her words sank into Ren's heart. He looked away from the old nun and stared at the wide-open landscape stretching out into the mountain mist. He saw the scattered granite stones, the wild grasses bowing to the wind, and the endless sky that had no boundaries at all. For the very first time in his life, he understood the true nature of his exhausting struggle. He had been acting exactly like the blind nun, spending all his vital energy checking the locks on his broken heart. The city companion who had betrayed him was gone forever, yet Ren was still guarding the old doorway. The fortune was lost, the trade house was dissolved, and the old life had completely crumbled into ruins. There was no wall left for a thief to climb. Yet Ren was still standing at the perimeter. He kept leaping awake at midnight to check the latch. He was torturing his own spirit to protect a past identity that no longer existed. His hypervigilance was a frantic attempt to lock a gate that stood in the middle of a completely open meadow. Ren took a slow, deep breath of the freezing mountain air, feeling it expand deep into his lungs. He did not experience a magical, instantaneous wave of total enlightenment. The old habit of fear did not vanish from his nervous system in a flash of light. He could still feel the faint, familiar tightening in his chest. The old urge to scan the shadows for danger remained. But something fundamental had shifted within his understanding. He stopped treating the fearful thoughts as absolute truths. He recognized the suspicion as a mechanical habit of a tired mind, rather than a real description of his present reality. With slow, deliberate movements, Rin walked over to the flat rock and sat down in the damp grass next to the old nun. He did not ask any more questions. He did not demand an explanation for his pain. He simply sat with the cold mist brushing against his face, allowing himself to exist in the wide open space of the ruins. He watched the tiny golden flame of the clay lamp flicker in the breeze without going out. He allowed the mountain wind to blow directly against his body from all directions, realizing that he no longer needed to fight the air. For the first time since the night of the city betrayal, Ren allowed his hands to drop completely open into his lap. He chose to sit quietly with the vast, beautiful uncertainty of the mountain sky. Let the image of that lone stone pillar settle deeply into your awareness. The heavy metallic clink of a rusted iron latch falling into an empty catch is the exact sound of a weary mind trying to secure what has already passed away. When you lie awake in the dark, scanning the stillness of your room, you are performing the exact same ritual as the blind nun in the mountain ruins. You are standing duty at a gate where the walls have completely crumbled to the earth. Perhaps you have felt this exhausting loop within your own thoughts. You check your phone for reassurance. You reread old text messages to find a hidden shift in meaning. And you analyze the casual expressions of the people around you. This is the psychological mechanism of post-betrayal hypervigilance. It is a state of chronic inner mobilization where the spirit refuses to stand down because it confuses the memory of a past threat with the reality of the present moment. Let us look directly at the hidden engine that drives this constant wakefulness. The mind relies heavily on the illusion of control. When someone you trusted blindsides you, your original sense of safety is shattered into 1,000 pieces. The ego experiences this surprise as a form of emotional annihilation. To prevent that terrifying feeling of helplessness from ever returning, the mind makes a desperate calculation. It decides that if it can remain permanently hyper-aware, it can never be caught guard again. You begin to treat uncertainty as an active enemy. You believe that by mentally rehearsing every single potential disaster, you are building a protective barrier around your life. You spend your evenings replaying the past to find out where you went wrong, and you spend your nights forecasting the future to ensure you cannot be blindsided a second time. Now let this wisdom come closer to your own life. This constant forecasting is not a form of wisdom. It is simply fear masquerading as protection. The mind exhausts its vital energy trying to manage variables that it can never truly control. You cannot force another person to remain faithful, and you cannot predict the exact trajectory of tomorrow's weather. When we demand that the fluid world become completely solid and predictable, we end up over-tightening the internal frame of our spirit. We pull our awareness so tight that the slightest variation in our environment causes us to vibrate with panic. We become like a taut string that snaps at the gentleness of a passing draft. The suffering you feel tonight is not caused by the wind outside your window. It is caused by the rigid structure you have built to resist that wind. Ancient Buddhist wisdom points toward a crucial distinction that can liberate your heart from this exhaustion. The teachings describe two entirely different forms of difficulty that we encounter in this life. The first form is the unavoidable pain that comes from living in a changing universe. Hearts will sometimes change, promises will occasionally fail, and people we love will sometimes let us down. This is the first kind of pain. It is sharp, it is real, and it brings a genuine necessary sorrow to the human spirit. The Buddha never asked us to pretend this pain does not exist. He never instructed us to become cold, unfeeling stones that do not weep when trust is broken. The sorrow of a betrayal is a natural reflection of the love you once gave. But the deeper lesson reveals itself when we look at what happens after the arrow has landed. The second form of difficulty is the extra suffering the mind adds through its own internal resistance. This is the suffering born from our refusal to accept reality as it is. When a betrayal occurs, the first arrow inflicts a wound. But when we spend months or years replaying that event, analyzing the motives of the betrayer, and treating every new person as a hidden threat, we are striking a second arrow into our own chest. This second arrow is entirely self-forged. It is the suffering of standing guard at an open gate in a ruined courtyard. We take the original painful event and we transform it into a permanent description of who we are. We build an entire identity around our mistreatment, telling ourselves that we are fundamentally unsafe. that the world is inherently malicious, and that peace is a luxury we can no longer afford. Consider how this mechanism operates through the heavy burden of self-judgment. When you find yourself unable to trust, you do not simply feel afraid. You layer a second wave of condemnation over your fear. You criticize yourself for being so defensive, or you feel ashamed because your heart remains closed when someone offers you genuine warmth. You treat your own anxiety as a personal defect, believing that you are spiritually broken because you cannot easily let go of the past. But this self-condemnation is just another desperate strategy of the mind to assert control. It believes that if it shames itself enough, it can force the heart to become perfect and safe. True healing does not happen by adding shame to an already exhausted spirit. You do not fix a tight paper screen by hitting it with a heavy hammer. You fix it by gently loosening the joints, allowing the fibers to regain their natural flexibility. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that peace is not the total absence of difficult winds. Peace is a fundamentally altered relationship with those winds. You do not need to build an iron wall to keep out the uncertainty of life. You only need to realize that your core awareness is like the vast mountain summit itself. The stones may crumble, the ancient walls may fall into dust, and the clouds may sweep through the clearing from dusk until dawn. But the open space of the meadow remains completely whole, untouched, and uninjured by the movement of the weather. Tonight you can choose to step away from the role of the perimeter guard. You can look at the mechanical habits of your mind without choosing to believe their terrifying stories. When a suspicious thought arises in the dark, you do not have to welcome it as an absolute truth. You do not have to cross-examine reality to prove the thought wrong. You can simply observe it as an old rhythmic clink of a rusted latch on an empty pillar. You can say to your own heart, this is just the old gatekeeper walking its round. You can let the latch clink in the wind without letting it disrupt the stillness of your inner temple. You can allow the uncertainty of tomorrow to exist without needing to resolve it before you sleep. Let your body rest in this profound realization. The person who injured your trust is not present in the darkness of this room. The past events have left no physical marks upon the linen of your pillow. The space surrounding your chest is perfectly open, quiet, and still. You are completely safe to drop the heavy brass lantern of your hypervigilance. There is no intruder coming to breach the perimeter tonight, because the fortress has already returned to the wild, peaceful earth. You can let the frame go slack, letting your breath move softly through your body, like the night air moving through the wide-open mountain meadow. The quiet architecture of the mountain ruins slowly dissolves. The open sky and the ancient stone pillars fade back into the dark geography of your modern bedroom. You are back here, lying in the stillness of the night, surrounded by the ordinary objects of your current life. The memory of the blind nun and the carpenter remains with you like a soft fragrance. It is a quiet reminder that the wisdom of the ancient path is not meant to stay hidden in the high hills. It is designed to breathe within the noisy, unpredictable spaces of your daily existence. Consider how this old habit of hypervigilance operates during your regular afternoon hours. It shows up in the most ordinary moments. Think of the small, glowing screen of your phone sitting on the wooden desk. You see a notification light flash, or you notice that a message you sent remains unanswered for hours. Instantly, the inner carpenter inside your mind yanks the wooden twine tight. The fibers of your chest pull completely rigid. You begin to construct an entire landscape of impending rejection based on a single delay. Your mind spins a web of explanations, replaying your recent interactions to discover the exact mistake you made. You are rattling the iron latch on a solitary stone pillar, trying to secure a perimeter against a danger that exists only in your memory. Have you noticed how your body reacts when a companion changes their tone of voice by a single degree? A brief text message without an expected punctuation mark, a tired sigh after a long day, or a moment of ordinary human distraction can trigger the old alarm system. The mind immediately treats this slight shift as an absolute confirmation of your worst fears. You believe the abandonment is happening again. You smile on the outside, pretending everything is perfectly fine. While inside your chest, the paper screen is screaming at the passing draft. You spend an immense amount of vital energy pretending to be okay. You hide the raw, defensive awareness that is frantically pacing the boundaries of your spirit. This is the exhausting paradox of the modern hypervigilant heart. You want to love deeply, but you treat the vulnerability of love as a structural threat to your survival. You check your phone for reassurance, yet the reassurance only satisfies the fear for a few passing minutes. Soon, the urge to verify, to cross-examine, and to inspect the locks returns with double the force. You become a prisoner of your own protective strategies. The walls you built to keep out untrustworthy people have ended up trapping you in a state of permanent isolation. You are missing the actual warmth of the present moment because you are too busy preparing for a future betrayal. And perhaps this is the exact place where the teaching begins to touch your own daily life. The ancient path does not ask you to change the behavior of the world around you. It does not promise that every person you meet will treat your heart with absolute perfection. People will have their own cold seasons, their own distractions, and their own sudden changes of mood. This is the natural wind of human existence. The true transformation happens when you change your internal relationship with that wind. You can practice this path in the tiny, unhurried pauses of your ordinary day. When you feel the familiar tightening in your throat or your chest, you can choose to halt the momentum of the panic. You do not have to fight the suspicious thought, and you do not have to believe it either. You can simply take one single, unhurried breath before you type a response or check your device. You can look at the terrifying story your mind is telling you, and you can gently decline to obey its command. The thought is just a passing current of cold air moving through your space. It does not possess the capacity to destroy your inner temple, unless you pull the frame tight enough to resist it. You can let the thought exist without turning it into a blueprint for action. This means learning the beautiful art of caring for another human being without turning that care into an exhausting pattern of control. Gripping a relationship too tightly does not preserve connection. It only suffocates the space where true love naturally breathes. You can allow the people you love to have their own quiet spaces, their own tired evenings, and their own unshared struggles. You do not need to constantly police their expressions to ensure your own emotional survival. The vast, open meadow of your true nature cannot be diminished by another person's temporary distance. Your worth is not a fragile thing that can be stolen by a delayed text message or a cold glance. Let us also look at the heavy guilt you often experience when you try to rest. You live in a culture that tells you safety must be constantly earned through continuous production, alertness, and effort. When you try to lie down at night, your mind tells you that you are vulnerable if you are not actively solving a problem. You feel guilty for resting, believing that you should be working to fix your life or secure your future. But true spiritual wisdom means allowing yourself to rest without needing to prove your worth to your fears first. Rest is not a luxury you earn after finding an absolute guarantee of safety. It is the very ground from which true safety grows. Tonight, you are allowed to drop the heavy ledger of your historical grievances. You do not need to figure out who is perfectly safe and who is dangerous while you are lying here in the dark. All of those heavy analytical questions can remain on the floor beside your bed. For the next few hours, your only true purpose is to let the wooden pegs slide loose, leaving the frame of your mind completely soft as the dark hours unfold. You can let the world move around you without needing to monitor its trajectory. You can let your spirit go beautifully slack, trusting that the open meadow of your awareness is already completely whole. The darkness of the night has now deepened into its quietest hour. The demands of your daily life have receded completely into the background. In this still space, your long perimeter watch is finally coming to an end. You have carried the heavy brass lantern of your vigilance for so many miles. You have listened closely for the slightest sound of trouble in the dark. But right now, there is absolutely nothing left for you to guard. The space around your body is perfectly settled and secure. The air in your room is cool and unmoving. You can feel the profound weight of your physical form sinking deeply into the soft linen of your bed. Your breathing has slowed down to a gentle, effortless rhythm. Each breath enters like a cool mountain draft, bringing stillness to your core. Each breath exits like a soft sigh, carrying away the last remnants of the day's tension. You are safe enough to let the world move forward without your supervision tonight. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes relax completely. There is no need to scan the shadows behind your eyelids anymore. The dark landscape within your mind is perfectly peaceful. And at rest, let your lower jaw drop down, releasing the deep structural grip that you carried through the waking hours. Your teeth do not need to grind against the memories of the past. Your throat is soft and open. Your shoulders are melting heavily into the mattress, giving up the heavy armor they wore to protect your heart. You do not need to stand at the gateway of your life tonight. The fortress has done its job, and now it is time for the guardian to rest. Feel the long, slow wave of relaxation traveling down your spine. It moves through your lower back, your hips, and your legs all the way down to the tips of your toes. Your entire body is becoming beautifully heavy, sinking down into the supportive embrace of the earth beneath you. The old mechanical habit of checking the locks is fading away. You can hear the distant, quiet clink of the rusted iron latch in your memory, but it does not cause a tremor in your body. The gatepost stands alone in the middle of a vast, open meadow under the midnight sky. The ancient stone walls have completely crumbled into soft green moss and rich, damp soil. There is no perimeter left for an enemy to breach. There is no secret doorway for anyone to force open. The open landscape cannot be stolen, and it cannot be broken by the actions of another person. Because you have no walls left to defend, you are completely invulnerable to surprise. The wind can blow from the north, the clouds can drift across the grass, and the mist can fill the valleys. All of these movements pass through the open space without leaving a scratch upon the earth. You are that vast, enduring space. The paper screen that once rattled so violently in the hallway has become completely quiet. The tiny wooden pegs have been pulled out entirely, letting the cedar frame dissolve back into the silence of the forest. The white paper has grown so soft and thin that it has turned into pure air. The bitter drafts of your old anxieties can no longer find a surface to strike against. When a memory of the city betrayal passes through your awareness, it finds no resistance. It finds no tight string to vibrate, and it finds no rigid barrier to crash into. The memory simply drifts through your open awareness like a wisp of gray smoke disappearing into the night sky. You do not need to capture the smoke, and you do not need to drive it away. You can simply let it fade into the boundless dark. Your mind is changing its relationship with the uncertainty of life. You are no longer demanding that the fluid world become solid to make you feel safe. You are discovering a deeper, much quieter sanctuary right beneath the fear. It is the peace of a heart that has finally stopped fighting its own history. The first arrow that struck you in the past was painful, but that storm has completely left the horizon. The second arrow has been gently laid down upon the grass. You are no longer using your own thoughts as a weapon against your spirit. You are no longer punishing yourself for the mistakes of others. You are simply here, breathing in the quiet dark, completely whole just as you are. Imagine looking up at a vast sky of deep indigo. The sky stretches out forever, clear and unburdened by the weather of the lower world. Hanging directly in the center of this infinite space is a long, heavy banner of dark indigo silk. The silk is rich, soft, and perfectly woven. It hangs completely vertical, descending gracefully toward the quiet earth. There is no wind to make it ripple. There is no sudden draft to make it tremble. The indigo silk is perfectly motionless in the warm, windless midnight air. It embodies the absolute ease of a spirit that has dropped its guard. It represents a heart that is no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. The banner rests in its own weight, completely supported by the spacious silence of the universe. You can let your consciousness merge with this motionless indigo silk. You can feel its stillness settling into the very center of your chest. You have permission to fall asleep now. You do not need to earn your rest by solving the problems of your relationships tonight. You do not need to determine who is trustworthy before you close your eyes. You do not need to fix your capacity to trust in this hour. All of those heavy burdens can remain on the floor beside your bed, completely untouched until the morning sun rises. Tonight, your only purpose is to dissolve into the quiet meadow of your own being. Let the boundaries of your mind expand into the dark. Let the breath become smaller, softer, and more distant, like the sound of a gentle stream flowing through a quiet forest. You are returning home to the quiet awareness that has never left your side. You are stepping out of the ruined fortress and resting under the open sky. Let yourself drift down into the deep, velvety dark. The space within you is completely safe, spacious, and at peace. The long watch is over, the gatekeeper is asleep, and the open meadow is quiet under the silver moon. Sleep is arriving like a gentle mist, wrapping your tired spirit in absolute comfort. You can let go of the frame entirely. You can sink into the deep, motionless silence of the midnight hour. What if the absolute safety you have been trying to build with your fear was already here, quietly waiting for you to stop guarding the door?